Hello, and welcome to the 6th episode of Inside the Majors podcast, presented by Kinetic Racing. I'm your host, Wade Hayes. In this week's episode, we turn the focus to the sportsman class. As guests, we have Adam Facciponti and Dave Douglas, who have already wrapped up the sportsman titles in Europe and International respectively. Our show comes to you today from Autodromo Jose Carlos Pace, formerly known as Interlagos, a motorsports circuit located in the city of São Paulo, Brazil. The The circuit is named in honor of Brazilian Formula One driver Carlos Pace, whose lone F1 win came at the track in 1975 and was renamed after he was killed in a private light aircraft accident near Sao Paulo in March of 1977. The circuit was opened in 1940 and was originally 4.9 miles long, but was modified for the 1990 Grand Prix to the shorter 2.7 mile layout we have today. It has hosted the Formula One Brazilian Grand Prix 36 times since 1973 and full-time since 1990. In this final round of the season, drivers will be tested by the high downforce, rapid acceleration, and seemingly endless braking ability of the Williams FW31, which was designed and built by Williams F1. The AT&T Williams team used the FW31 to compete in the 2009 Formula One season with Nico Rosberg and Katsuki Nakajima. Well, welcome to the show, Mike. Looks to be a good race here in our final round for the season. Who should we be looking for in this session?
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a great last race. Looks like we're going to have at least two splits in Euro and America, so we always like to see that. And so as such, we've got a lot of people trying to fight their way into Pro. We've got, looks like Brian Barnes is going to set a time, trying to bump somebody. Same with Bob Beltrami, Johnny Bell, Bill Fletcher are all guys in Americas that are have speed and are looking to make that top split. So we want to watch out for them for sure. You've got Kurt Crum in Euro, and he's obviously one of the typically fastest guys in the European region, so expect him to lay down something strong, and Andy Banfield as well. In European, very interesting little session here. We got 8 drivers so far, pretty evenly split between European and Americas.
Yeah, as far as splits go, what are we looking for? Are we thinking 2 splits in both?
Yeah, it could go to 3 in Americas, but given we've got, like I said, 8 people in the session right now, and obviously that can expand over the next 50 minutes, but I would guess we're going to have 2 mid-20s splits in both European and Americas. So good splits. We had 23 yesterday in international, so it's just about right for an F1.
Yeah, how did that race go? I haven't had a chance to catch up on the replay.
Well, I think we should ask John.
Yeah, John.
It was pretty good. The regulars got absolutely destroyed by a couple of ringers, but in amongst the regulars, it was a really good race from like 3rd to 15th place, and we ended up with a really, really intense battle for 3rd in the pro stand-ins. I think Chris Purnell eventually beat me by something like 4 points, and I think the 3rd through 6th or 7th is separated by like 24 points. But it was a really fun race. As I normally do, I concentrated on making sure I finished, and not too much on speed. So I was sort of yo-yoing around 10th place for most of the race, but it was really good. Interesting strategies as well, because half of the field did a 1-stopper and the other half did a 2-stopper, and it doesn't seem to make too much difference. It just depends on personal preference.
That's cool. I know a lot of people were listening or watching, trying to see how the strategy would play out, and I don't think they necessarily gained anything that concrete out of it.
No, I think 1st, 2nd, and 4th did 2 stops, and 3rd and 5th did 1 stop. So you can draw your own conclusions from that. I think pretty much everyone in international finished where they deserved to finish.
So I guess maybe we could get in a little bit to the structure of this race, and the car we're running is interesting. It's different from what we ran last year. In fact, it's a little older. Mike, maybe you can get into how that decision came about. I assume the competition committee debated and took a vote, and how did that go?
Yeah, you're exactly right. So we have, for those that don't know, we have a rule in our scheduling where there's a few races that are absolutely locked into the schedule each and every year. There are crown jewels, and those are, for the most part, they're the same race. The first three are the same. It's Daytona 500, the Indy 500, and Le Mans will all be on the schedule every year, no matter what. So, spoiler alert for next year's schedule. But that's every single year. There's no exceptions to that. But we have a fourth race, which is a must-have on the schedule, which is a current Formula One race. Well, so we got into the debate over as far as the current aspect with regard to the McLaren versus the Williams, and really neither car is perfectly current and neither car is really outdated. So we felt like we could have take a little bit of liberties with the choice, still have a current F1 race with the Williams. The McLaren, to be honest, there's no series that really runs it anymore. Obviously, the pros don't run it anymore, and it's just a pain to drive if you don't drive it all the time. And most of the time in our series, we're happy to take on cars that are a pain. But really, it just has nothing as far as participation. Everybody seemed to really loathe it. It was more of a chore than a challenge, and we didn't want that either. So we like challenges, we don't like chores, and so everybody felt like the Williams was just a ton more fun while still being plenty of challenge, big enough handful. So that's how we came to the conclusion.
Yeah, I applaud the choice. I'm a low downforce. My favorite car in the system is the Porsche GT3 Cup car. So give me no downforce and let me drive it with some mechanical grip. So this is probably about as far away from my comfort zone as I get as far as a road racing car. But I've been having a blast with it. So I applaud the choice. I did not have much fun last year.
Yeah, well, your sentiments are echoed by a lot of people, and this is a fun fact, and I'm sure it will come back to bite me, and somebody will send me emails. But I've literally had not one complaint about the change. I mean, obviously we made it months and months in advance, but not one person has said, "Man, I really wish we were running the McLaren." So I'm guessing we did okay.
Yeah, I certainly haven't heard that, so that's good. So anything out of the championships? I mean, we're locking it up now. This is the last round. I think the main championships we already had either locked up or close enough that we kind of just knew. What if we look down at the sportsman class? What can you tell us there, Mike?
Yeah, so we have 15 main championships, the 6 team and 9 individuals. So with the Mario Andretti, the sportsmen, the legends, and then the 2 team championships, the championship or the pro and the sportsman team championships. Every single championship is locked up except for 2, and that's the sportsman in Americas, which Kyle Murphy is going for with Samuel Scott, but it doesn't look like Samuel's going to make the race. So possibly we could get an Ernie Ludwig or a Mark Redeker sneak in there and steal it from Kyle if something really bad happens. But it looks like Kyle's looking good now. And then in European, we have mathematically we still have a race for the sportsman team championship, but it looks like the Hansen brothers have a good shot at taking that home tomorrow. So most everything is wrapped up. As a matter of fact, I have in my office sitting behind me all those trophies except for the 2 that aren't known yet. So that's pretty cool. I'm getting excited to send those out next week.
Awesome. So speaking of Kyle Murphy, we unfortunately weren't able to book him this week. We were really hoping to, but we did get his teammate, Adam Facciponti, who is the winner of the sportsman category in Europe. And he's here in the booth with us. So congratulations, Adam. Hopefully I haven't murdered your last name. I tried really hard.
No, that's one of the better attempts I've heard this year. So no, you're good, man. I'm really not too sensitive to that, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
But thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, and that's a really cool idea that you guys had to dedicate this to the Sportsman's Championship. So that's really cool. And I just want to say I really enjoy the podcast too. I've been watching all of them since y'all started them, and they're just a really neat way to keep up on the series and learn some stuff about the other teams too.
Awesome, thank you, and thanks for watching. So as I'm sure you saw, in our first episode we had Steve Driscoll on, which is a former or a kind of the team boss for UDocs, your team. Can you tell us a little bit from your perspective? How's the team? Are you getting everything you want from it? And when you approached the team, did you know what you were getting into?
Yeah, I can talk about that. It's funny because initially last year when Steve was running Precision Motorsports, when he approached me, it was like third or fourth race of the season to join that. I was kind of reluctant to even join a team, just because I wasn't sure I wanted to put that much commitment into my racing yet. But obviously, I'm happy I did. Steve brought me along when they merged, and we all just became UDOCs this year, and it's a great team. I mean, it's been hugely beneficial to me. I mean, I have zero complaints. I mean, the Matt does a great job running the team. We take it seriously enough to run well, but it's not so serious that we don't have fun. And I mean, everybody on the team's just great. I mean, the fast guys like Travis and Steve, they're more than willing to take us developing drivers under their wing. They're always very generous with their time. And I mean, Travis and Steve just scare me, man. I want to give you a quick little side story here. So Steve, I think right now is still on the outside pole for Americas with like a 12.1, I think. He ran that with one hand.
Don't tell me that. Don't tell me.
I asked him, I was like, can I tell them that? Because he's very modest. He didn't want to sound like he was trying to show anybody up, but he was supposed to have surgery this week, which was going to put one of his arms out of commission. And he wanted to get some practice of driving with one hand so he could still run on Sunday. So he was practicing all week like that and did his qualifying run like that. So I ran two-handed and ran a 12.5. So it's just embarrassing how good that guy is. It's just crazy.
Yeah, and he's been really good from the start. I've been in a lot of practice sessions with him, and I just, is he running low fuel? What's going on? I don't understand. You guys are looking very, very strong between across the whole team, really.
Yeah, and it's just a huge credit to the whole team. I mean, like I said, Travis and Steve they have different driving styles, so they'll generally, if what Steve's doing isn't going to work for me, usually what Travis is doing will. And then Kevin Hill, I mean, he's become, a really great driver this year. I mean, I think he's like eighth in the America's standings. I mean, he's doing really well, and me and him have pretty similar driving styles, so we talk a lot about what we're doing, and we trade setups back and forth and stuff. But but I mean, everybody on the team contributes. I mean, whether it's working out strategy or running numbers. And I mean, sometimes we'll do team practices and try to work on racecraft and stuff. And I mean, like I said, it's just been great for me. I've learned so much this year about cars, about setups, about racecraft. I mean, I can't stress enough how beneficial it's been for me and how much it's helped me as a driver.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you and Kyle look to both be in line to win the Sportsman Championship, but you've done it in different ways. It's been interesting. You actually have had the opportunity to run in the Pro Split quite a bit or several times this year, and Kyle has basically just been really good and consistent and doing well in the Sportsman Split. Can you kind of talk about how that dynamic of that championship works for you?
Yeah, sure. It's unfortunate Kyle couldn't make it because I was really kind of looking forward to hearing his perspective on that. I ran America's last season, and I switched to Euro this year just because the times work a little bit better for me being on the East Coast. And to give some props to Kyle, I mean, it's really hard to make pro in America's. I only made pro, I think, half the races last season. And this season I've made all but one. And there's definitely been times where my qualifying times that I wouldn't have made pro in America. So it's a little bit easier in Euro. Not to knock Euro. I mean, there's lots of talent in Euro. It's just it's a little bit smaller region. So of course it's just a little bit easier. But as far as the championships though, I mean I've had a decent points lead most of the year. But the way this point system works, I mean, you could lose a lot of points in one race. Like I think at Le Mans. Colin Marsoff gained over 100 points on me. And I didn't even really have that bad of a race. I was in the Pro Split and I finished, I didn't crash or anything. But he just ran really well and he gained over 100 points on me. So it was like, wow, and then, he had really good runs. He was running second at Eldora in the pro split towards the end of the race. And I was like struggling at like 15th or something like that. And he actually got wrecked by a lap car. So if not for, some bad luck for him, I think we would have had a lot closer championship. And Mike Gaunt, he was keeping me honest the first half of the season, and he missed a few races. But I mean, it's been hard for sure. Like with Euro being so small, a lot of races only have 2 splits, and so it's been really important to try and make the pro split. But then once you make it, with the rule change this year, you have to be a classified finisher. So it's really important to make sure you run well too, and make sure you're finishing the race so you get classified. Because otherwise, you're going to be getting points at the bottom of the sportsman split, and I mean, you could just lose a ton of points that way.
Yeah, the other piece of that really is with the overlap. Just getting into the pro split doesn't mean that you've got just a step up. You really also have to do well in that pro split to beat the guy that wins in sports.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was kind of a trap that I fell into last year a lot. I would spend so much time working on qualifying, trying to make the pro split, and I wouldn't do enough race practice. And that's something that the guys have really worked with me this year on is doing a lot more race practice. And I think we're going to talk later about the support series, and that helps a lot with that too. But yeah, I've been trying to focus more on my racing and making sure that, when I do get in pro, I can, run to the end and run up through the field a little bit at least and make sure I'm getting ahead of that overlap. But the championship, I mean, to me, it's like, I know it's not the big deal like the pro championship is, but I mean, for me, it's by far my biggest accomplishment in iRacing. I've never won any kind of championship at all. So in a league like this that has like Mario Andretti's name attached to it, to win even the Sportsman Championship is it's a huge thrill for me, and I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, it's awesome. And again, congratulations. You remind me of, I know I've said this several times on the podcast about, one of the things I love the most about this league is that there's something to run for no matter your skill level. And just because you're not running, top fives every week in the pro split doesn't mean that you can't have some focus and a battle with a guy, either at a championship level or at a race level, and show up every week knowing that you'll have somebody to race.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing about this league is that we're not in the same cars every week. So it's like, I mean, yeah, there's races that fit a little bit more in your wheelhouse. So, for example, when we went to Michigan in the Cup cars, I mean, that's a little bit more in my comfort zone. And then, the guys put together a really good setup for that race. And I mean, I kind of shocked myself, went up there and, I mean, for a guy with a 1500 I rating in ovals to be sitting on the front row with Christian Challenger was just I still can't believe it, man. And that was a really fun race. It was a crazy race for me. But yeah, I mean, just that's another awesome thing about the league is that we keep switching things up. So even if you're not very good in such and such car, there will be races in the year that you have a better chance to compete in. And then, of course, like you said, they have what did Mike say? They have like 16 championships. So there's always something to race for. And I love the league. It's been a great time.
So we wrap up the league. This is our last round, but we're not really over. One of the main kind of off-season or mid-season events is the 24 Hours Le Mans. Is that something that you and the team are going to participate in?
Yeah, to my knowledge, we're working that out. So we got the LMP1 invite, and they were taking a head count during the week to see who all was interested. And I think we have enough drivers to do it. So I'm looking forward to that. Last year, Precision didn't run it, and Steve was gracious enough to let me run with another team. So I ran the 24 with the Rutgers Kev Show in LMP2, and it was just a really cool experience. I mean, a 24-hour sim race. 10 years ago on iRacing, I'm not sure any of us could really imagine that would be a thing. And, the whole team aspect of it is neat. I actually enjoyed spotting almost as much as I did racing last year. So, but if we run LMP1, that's cool. I've never raced those cars before, so that should be interesting. But if we have enough guys to do a second entry, I told the team, I said, I'll drive whatever y'all need me to drive. So if they want me in LMP1, that's cool. If they want me in GT, that's cool. But it's just a super cool experience. So I hope most of the guys try it out, because it's a really neat thing to do, to put on your sim racing resume that you ran the 24 hours of Le Mans.
Yeah, it's awesome. And to any listeners that haven't done it, I absolutely recommend you do. Get a team together and go run GT or LMP2 and get into it, because it's an amazing experience, and it's a great way to build not just your racing resume but friendships to go through that experience with people.
Yeah, for sure. I know I really enjoyed running with those guys last year. Running with the Rutgers Cavs team, and I kept in touch with some of those guys for a little while. Kind of lost touch with them this year, but it was just a really neat thing. I mean, I started watching racing just with kind of NASCAR, and then I started to kind of branch out into IndyCar, F1, and then I got into sports cars and Le Mans. And I mean, Le Mans is just such a cool event. I mean, it's probably the most famous racing event in the world, and to run the virtual equivalent, it's definitely a highlight of my sim racing career.
Awesome. So looking forward to next year, have you started making plans? I assume that you'll get bumped up into pro classification. Is that what's that mean for your next year?
It changes the dynamic quite a bit, for sure. This year, honestly, once I didn't even know I was leading the Sportsman Championship until I think it was Kyle or Kevin told me like 3 or 4 races in. They're like, "Hey, dude, you're leading Sportsman in Europe." So, so it's been fun, but it's been stressful. Not to knock myself, but I mean, I'm not a pro championship caliber driver at this point. Maybe if I keep developing, but so that's going to be one thing. It's going to be a little less stressful, I think, because I'm not going to be competing for the championship. But that doesn't mean I don't have goals, of course. I'm probably going to stay in Euro, again, just because the start times work great for me. I'd like to try and make all the pro splits. That was one of my goals this year, and I missed the first race of the season. I messed up my goal already, but then I made the rest of them. If I could get top 10 in points, that would be awesome. And I mean, my big goal though is just I'd like to win a race. I mean, I finished second at Milwaukee to Christian when he lapped the field, and I'd love to just win a race. I mean, I really felt like I could have won a Daytona 500 this year. We had a really awesome car, and if I could get out front, the car was really good. I was really able to lead comfortably, and I just made kind of a silly mistake and got myself shuffled out, and then I wound up in some wrecks. But we had an awesome Daytona car. I mean, I won my clash split, and then I won one of the pro qualifying races, and that's mostly due to the car. I mean, we had a really great car, and that's also kind of my background too. I used to run just like trillions of Daytona and Talladega races on NASCAR Racing 2003, like back in the day. So I have a lot of experience with that kind of racing. But so that's my 2020 goals. I'm really looking forward to it. The majors has pretty much rejuvenated my iRacing career. I was hardly using the service when Mike sent me the invite to it. And really what drew me in was the format. I mean, I used to love running the World Tour events. And like the tagline says, there's races and then there's majors. And the series, I mean, it's just really neat. All the marquee events that we run from different disciplines. And I mean, introducing me to stuff I never even heard of, like the Copper World Classic we ran last year, and that wound up being one of my favorite races of the year. As long as I'm talking about it, I like to say thanks to Mike and all the guys who put this league on. It's a ton of fun, and all the work they put in, and they have a monumental amount of patience dealing with all the questions. And even from guys like me who've been around for a couple of years, I still get confused about stuff, and they never get like snippy with people. And they just run a great league, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for that. One of the like sub series, it's still part of the majors, is the support series, and I know that you're a big supporter of that. John always tries to get a plug in every week for that. But I thought since you're an active participant and a vocal supporter, I thought maybe I'd give you the chance.
Well, yeah. I mean, first, I'd just like to say, I mean, John King, I mean, he's a really great guy. Me and him, we kind of keep in touch, and he's real friendly, real approachable. I mean, you could ask him anything about the series or give him comments and stuff. So he's a really great guy, and we had a really cool race at the spa support race. I guess it was really cool for me because I wound up winning it, but he was stalking me the whole race in the dark. Like every lap, I'm checking my times, you know, and watching where he was. It was a really cool, fun race. But the support series it's one of my favorite parts of the league, really. You know, the league takes a lot of commitment. And so for the support series, because it's fixed setup, you know, you don't have to quite put in as much time working on it. So it's a lot of fun to just be able to kind of, you know, show up, put a little bit of practice in. It's a more casual atmosphere. The races are shorter. But it's still very competitive, and it's a lot of fun. And especially with the changes they made this year with using the same cars as the main race now, and you know, and now the practice lap or the race laps count towards your official practice. I mean, it's a huge opportunity for guys to get some real practice instead of just kind of hot lapping by yourself. Or even when you go into the open sessions and you want to find people to run race practice with, sometimes it's hard to find enough people to get into realistic situations. So I know some guys don't like it because it's fixed setup, but you know, I mean, it's the same for everybody, man. I mean, some cars and setups are not going to fit your driving style, but that's just another challenge. It kind of forces you to adapt. And I think for me, it's another thing that's helped me kind of grow as a driver. So anybody listening, come on out, man. The support series is a great time.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's low impact. You know, it's typically, you know, an hour, half length races, and like you said, it's a great opportunity to really get some of that race practice in that you don't always see during the week.
Yeah, for sure. Because, you know, I mean, depending on what kind of cars we're in, I mean, sometimes, I mean, there's not much opportunity to get, you know, some side by side racing in and understand, you know, some of the racecraft in that particular car. You know, because racing's different in every series, and then all the different tracks we go to and everything. So, I mean, for me, I try to run them whenever I can. I actually missed this one because I was kind of under the weather last weekend. But I try to run them every chance I get. And I mean, sometimes I run them both the Europe and the Americas ones just because, I mean, they're a lot of fun and they're great experience for me. And yeah, it's a great series. I mean, I just don't understand how. I mean, if you like the major series itself, I mean the support series is it's the same amount of fun, but just with a little bit less time consuming. So it's just a great series. So thanks to John and everybody who puts that series on. It's one of the best parts of the league to me.
All right. Thanks for coming.
Wait, can I just jump in
absolutely.
for a couple of seconds? First of all, thank you. That was really cool. One other thing about the support series is part of the fun of it is that it mixes up all the regions, so you get to drive with guys that you don't normally race with in the main events, and that's been really cool this year. And like Adam said, him and I stayed in touch after the spa race, and that wouldn't have happened in the main event. You know, until then we were just sort of names to each other. So that's one really cool thing. The other thing, going back to Adam's the question Wade asked Adam about him being pro next year. If you look at the standings this year, Adam would be sitting 8th in the Pro Championship, and he would be right in the fight for finishing 3rd today. He'd be 40 points behind 3rd place in Pro. So you'll fit in nicely in Pro, Adam.
Well, thanks for that, John. I was looking at that a little bit last night, but I wasn't sure how that would translate over. But I mean, it's using the same point system, so yeah, I guess that makes sense. But yeah, well, I appreciate that, John. I mean, I'm looking forward to next year and just, you know, see how I do. I mean, I'm gonna do my best and hopefully keep developing. And but thanks a lot for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Is there anybody or anything we missed or anybody you want to give a shout out to before we let you go?
I always just want to thank the team again for everything they've done for me and for making this a great experience. And to Mike as well, and all the guys who run the league. And then just say hi to my family. They're like the only people that care about my racing besides me. And I want to thank my girlfriend again. My girlfriend Christine, she puts up with a lot of me spending a lot of time on the simulator, and she never complains. And she supports my hobby, so I really appreciate that.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam.
Thanks.
All right, so moving on, we're going to bring Dave Douglas in. He's the winner of the Sportsman Championship in the international region and a member of RCD Motorsports. So firstly, Dave, welcome to the show and congrats on the championship.
Hey guys. It's been pretty good. It's been a good ride this season with the boys at RCD, and to be able to seal the Sportsman Championship, I guess, around early because it was a pretty big gap. Was good, so I could sort of relax and have a crack at the F1.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about RCD. How does that team work, and where are you guys from, and how'd you get together?
Yeah, so no, you're right. So basically, we're probably one of the smallest teams to take part in the majors, I guess. And I mean, I work with Riley, so we just come together, and he does a design business where he does liveries for real race cars. And I said, well, why don't we just make a team on iRacing, and we'll do the same thing. And you can do with the race cars. And we started up. We got some teammates, and then we found the majors. We're like, yeah, right, let's have a good crack at this. And so yeah, we took part in that. And as you can see, we're 1, 2, 3, 4 in the standings as drivers. We got a couple of ring-ins as well, but as you can see, that's pretty consistent, and everyone was willing to show up and put in the hard yards. And yeah, we took it to some of the bigger teams.
Yeah, that's awesome. So international's grown quite a bit this year. How did that change the approach for you and the team?
Yeah, well, it was as a team, and for myself as well. This was our first majors we've ever done, so we're not too sure what previous years were like, but you could definitely see it grow over the races, and you could see different races pick up with different people depending on how hard it was, I guess you could say. But yeah, as the year went on, you could definitely see that it grown, and I guess how we approach the races, we just same thing. We just put in some laps and see what comes of it.
Yeah, it's been cool to see the international region grow, and it's like it started just at the end of last year, it started to gain some traction. It really by mid-year this year, we were seeing 2 splits, and it was growing really well, and hopefully we'll continue on into next year.
Yeah, definitely. And as any league on iRacing, you sort of get your first couple of rounds in, and everybody's keen, and then it sort of starts to die off. But this one really didn't die off at all. But it was, I mean, depending on racing and what cars or whatever, some people obviously chose not to race. But yeah, it didn't die off as like you would normally see in a normal league. So it's been good.
Yeah, I find that that where we change every week, every time it's something different, you don't just get tired of driving the same car against the same people, because every round is different.
Yeah, 100%, and that's what attracted us and myself as a team to the series. Is it's all different disciplines. So some races you're going to be good, some races you're not going to be good. And as I said on the live broadcast yesterday, you've got races where you put a big red circle around and go, right, that's us. We'll have a good crack here. And then there's other races where you go, yeah, right, we'll just conserve here, and we'll just get points, basically. So, yeah, that definitely makes it fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So, looking forward, are you guys planning on doing the Le Mans 24?
Yeah, well, it's a pretty big achievement for us guys to be invited to do the LMP1, but I think we're going to choose and go race the GT. It's probably a bit more safer for us. And I think it'll be a bit more fun for us. I know I ran the LMP1 in the 2.4 and got absolutely smashed. And I know the European guys are a class act in that. So I think it'll be a bit more fun for us in the RSR, which I think we're going to run in the GTE. We'll definitely be there.
Awesome. Yeah, so I think Kinetic is going to have 3 LMP1s, but we'll only run 2 and run the third invite as an LMP2. So it's for similar reasons.
Yeah. yeah, no, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be good. I've never done a 24-hour race, and yeah, I'm looking to tick that off the list.
So is your team all basically based in the same area? So 24 hours is difficult. Like Kinetic, we have people all over the world. It's pretty easy to spread that load and say, all right, well, you don't have to race at 3 a.m. I assume that'll be different for you guys.
Yeah, somewhat. So two of our guys are in New Zealand, the rest of us are in Australia. So it's about a 2 hour to 3 hour difference between all of us. So it's not too bad. It'll work better for some and less for others. But yeah, as I said, it's only 3 hours, so it won't make too much of a difference, to be honest.
Sure. Hopefully you've got guys that like either the morning or night.
Yeah, well, that's it. We haven't worked any of that out yet, so we're sort of confirming the plans for now. But yeah, we'll work on that in the next week or so, I guess.
If I'll give you a little advice, be in charge of the schedule.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, we tried to do a Spa 24 and we only made it 3 hours, so that didn't work out. So we didn't have to worry about any sort of scheduling. So I guess, but yeah, we'll have a look at it.
So looking farther out into next year, what are your plans? What's the team's plans? I hope you guys are coming back.
Yeah, I think as drivers we'll definitely be back. I am not going to be driving for RCD for next year. I'm moving to Illusion Motorsport.
Oh, great.
Yeah, with Chris Purnell and those boys there. So I've sort of started working with them already. But I said to Riley and the team that I would see out the majors in the RCD colours, and I mean it's been great fun, and like I said, small little team taking it to some of the bigger teams around the iRacing community has been great and challenging but fun. But yeah, I'm not sure exactly what's going on with RCD at the moment, but I know as drivers, I'd say we're all going to come back and have a crack next year.
Awesome. So I'll give you the opportunity. The mic is yours. Is there anything about this series? Tell me the good, tell me the bad. If you could change anything, you have all the power for the next couple minutes.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess the good is the multiple disciplines that you're going to go through week in, week out. Every race, they're different, and I love that, and that's a big draw card. If there's only something that's sort of disappointing, I guess, is it's very there's a lot of penalties, and it's probably hard on you guys as well as admin. That you must be flooded with penalties after each race, because I go in there and have a look, and then there's just a list of names and drivers and that in there. So that's probably a bit of a downside of it, that there's that many penalties. But I guess in a league you've got to have that, otherwise it can get out of control, and then you know what happens next. And the only other thing is, and being a league, you're always trying to grow it, and international wise and whatever else. But you, like I said, you see those races on your calendar that you've got your red marker around, and then you get a ring in, and you know, oh yeah, I've raced him before, and he's super at it. So you think, I've got a chance at a win here. And look at it, and then they come up and yeah, they come and brain you. Like I think it's Newton yesterday. And I know a few other guys that come in and smash it, but I mean that's all part of it. I guess the nature of the beast. You just got to deal with it. But other than that, yeah, I can't really fault the league. It's been great fun, and I really look forward to next year.
Well, thanks again, Dave, for coming on the show and showing up early. And is there anybody that or anything we missed, or anybody you want to give a shout out to?
I don't think there's anything we missed apart from. I've just looked at the tally, and I was 26 before this round, 26 over the whole competition. I think I'm looking at the charity race itself, looking at the points there, so I was sitting 26 there. So I'm pretty happy about that. But other than that, give a shout out to the boys at RCD, Riley, Matt, Ryan, and Edward, who's done a few races with us this year. He's been ringing. They've been great working with those guys, and also a shout out to SimSpeed for broadcasting every race for us. They've been fantastic, and then obviously the admin at Majors do run this perfect league, mate. And yeah, apart from that, it's been good.
Awesome. Congratulations, and thanks again for joining us today.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
All right, so we'll move on. We typically don't ever have time for this, or have very little time for it, but have a little extra time this week to bring John King in and ask him to be the Kinetic John King, not the competition committee. So, John, welcome back to the booth.
Hi.
So, John, maybe you can get into there's lots of planning going forward for the Le Mans 24, and I thought maybe you could share a little bit about what goes into making decisions like on a big team like us, where we have multiple invites for LMP1 and we've got a lot of people that want to run. Go into how we make those decisions on what are we going to run and who's going to be in what cars, maybe.
Yeah, so the LMP ones were sort of simple because for sure in Europe and America we've got a competitive team in both cases. So that one was easy. International was a little bit more difficult. And it's actually changed in the equations changed a little bit in the last week or so, because Mike and I, having seen some of the reaction to the invites that we sent out and also looked at some of the driver eligibility, we changed one of the rules slightly. Before we'd said that only season pass holders could run in the LMP1, but we've relaxed that now and said that the LMP1 cars, well, the LMP1 invited teams can do the same as the other classes and pay an entry fee for having some non-SP drivers. And that actually makes it a little bit more viable for Kinetic to enter an international LMP1. Whether we're going to or not is still debatable, because a lot of it depends on Eric Thorpe and Josh Nowak, and anyone that's followed the series knows that Josh hasn't been the most consistent at turning up this year. So whether we can get enough drivers together is debatable. The other classes is a little bit more complicated, but in some ways it's straightforward, because we're going to run, I think, 3 LMP2s made up of everybody else, and I've basically grouped everyone together in speed. So we put all the guys that we know are very fast in the HPD in one car, and then a sort of middle group of guys, and then our normal sort of development type car for the sportsman team. And those guys are interesting because they've basically all run together in all the majors, in all the iRacing events this year anyway. So they're a very, very established team, and they'll be strong. Like they're still a really good group of drivers. And then hopefully we're going to have one GTE, but we've struggled a little bit on numbers for that, and we're probably going to get Shane Bowen and Dwayne Burns to drive with us, because they haven't got a big enough team to run their own car. And Dwayne, as most of the people will have seen, became a father a couple of days ago. So his schedule for the next month or so is up in the air slightly, let's say. So he can't really commit. So we're probably gonna bring those guys in and then run one GT, which should be pretty competitive.
Yeah, I think it might be interesting to touch a little bit on our development car a little bit more, kind of in light of this focus on the Sportsman Championship. I think it makes sense. You mentioned how that kind of core group has run in all of the major endurance races this year, at least, and maybe you can get into a little bit their results, because it's been very impressive. Yeah,
so we've, since our Blackadder days, we've always had this theory of having at least one car in the big iRacing events that we call a development car. We always used to call it Betsy. I can't remember where the name came from, but we group those guys together and we say to them, we don't care how fast you are or how slow you are. What we want you to do is finish. So concentrate on getting consistent and safe. Don't worry too much about the setup. Practice with the base setup if you start early, and just run laps and get to the point where you know that you're gonna make the end of the race. And in the race, don't worry about where you start or how fast you are relative to everyone else. Just run laps, and with 3 or 4 hours to go, then start thinking about what position you're going to finish in. Don't worry about it until then. And they've done fantastically. I think that car finished third at Daytona in split number 6 or something like that. We had a really, really good finish in Spa as well. And the whole year, there was one race where they didn't do very well, where they got taken out pretty early, but the whole season has been a big success for that group, and hopefully they'll do the same in the Majors 24. The other thing we do with the iRacing events is we often have one sort of more experienced ringer in the car. So typically me or Jake Fox will drive that car as well, just to give them a little bit of experience and help them out, and give them a bit of speed for a couple of stints if we need to make up places, and it works out really well.
Yeah, so I mentioned when I was talking to Dave about the concept of 24-hour race, and if your team is kind of geo-locked, that the challenge that brings. So as Kinetic, we're kind of worldwide. We got people all over the place. Maybe we can get into what challenges we have on the flip side of that, where we're not all on the same time zone or not even close.
Yeah, so it definitely helps during the races. The challenge with it is practice, because you often get to a point with the car where you want as many people as possible in one practice session so that they can compare notes and help each other. And it just doesn't happen when you got guys in Europe and Australia and America racing the same car. They're often just not on at the same time. So it definitely helps during the races, but it makes practice more challenging. But we always try to spread the load a little bit so that people don't have to drive in the middle of the night if they don't want to.
Yeah, practices and team meetings are almost impossible.
Yeah.
So looking forward to the 24, you're organizing that. Is there anything new that you want to get into, or any other additional shout outs that you think people should know?
No, everything's pretty organized. I said that we've made a slight change to the LMP1 driver lineups that the teams can use, but everything else is the same. Everything's ready. I've got the registration forms ready to post basically as soon as the Americas race is over on Monday morning for me. So hopefully we'll get a really good grid this year. I think we only had about 40 entries last year. It would be really nice to be in the 50s this year, and I think we'll achieve it.
Yeah, for sure. With the growth of the league that we've seen this year and the additional commitments that we've seen from drivers and teams, I think that a lot of people are looking forward to it. There's a lot of people that I've heard talking about really looking forward to making the go. So should be very interesting, and hopefully, like you said, have a bigger grid this year.
Yeah, I think the difference this year is that there is, this year everyone is much more understands much more the team concept in the majors, and there's a lot more teams and a lot more organization in those teams. Last year we really only had probably 10 or 12 teams that were reasonably well organized, and the rest were sort of a team by name, but they weren't really working that way. This year that number's probably gone up to 20, 25, something like that, maybe even higher than that. So it should be really good.
All right. Thanks, John. I see we still have Mike here. Want to bring you in, Mike. Any last words? We've got just a couple minutes left in this session. Looks like it's pretty much done. I don't expect to see any more. Any last words from you?
No, just been really interesting. I'll address one of the things that Dave brought up as a concern, just to reiterate, because that's something that when he was talking about, what he would change in the series. That's obviously been a very common feedback with regard to ringers and with regard to, people coming into the series for a one-off go, etc. And he's right. It's a balance that we've tried to strike for a long time in an effort to grow the series. Our goal has never been, to have one split. We could have one full split in one region and just call it the series, and that would be it. We totally could do that, but I've chosen to make it more difficult, I guess. But that also, speaks to one of the things that you both talked about, is that you don't see participation drop off as much throughout the year as you might in a different type of series or league. I think that's a big part of it, is that we do welcome folks. Now, that changes next year. Not that we don't welcome folks, but the whole ringer aspect changes pretty dramatically next year. For those who don't know, we've talked about it a little bit, but we'll still welcome people to come in to race with us, once or twice or whatever they want. But there won't be any free entries anymore. So you'll either purchase a season pass or you'll pay for a per race entry. And what we were talking about was actually something John and I were talking about, I think a week or two ago, was, what do you set that fee at per week? And how do you make it so that it's, something that is palatable for folks? They'll do it, but it's not so cheap that, you still end up with the same problem of ringers every week. So long intro to saying that, we're going to have a $10 entry fee, and that'll buy you a 2-race package. So if somebody comes in and they want to race with us, F1 is a perfect example. You get people who are specialists in this type of car, and they say, oh man, I never get an opportunity to run in a full grid, Williams race, because they don't. And here's their opportunity to do so, and they really want to do it. That's all fine and dandy. Next year they would have to pay $10, and if they joined us for the very last race of the season, if it was an F1 race again, which it's not, but if it was, and they wanted to join us, they would still have to pay the $10, even though there's not a second race behind it. But anyway, the idea behind the 2-race package is that you get people to come in for the race that they're a specialist at, and then they feel like, well, gosh, I've got this other race available to me for free now because I've already paid the $10. I might as well try something out. And then hopefully, we get our fingers in them and it hooks them for the long term. But for sure, the fact that there's an entry fee required for all races, whether it's the season pass or the race fee, will limit ringers to begin with. There'll be people who just pass on it as a result. But I think the ones that don't pass on it are more likely to become long-term members anyway. So anyway, I thought I would throw that in there.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that. So session's wrapping up. It looks like we've got one last taker here. Mark Herzog. We'll see. He might get a lap in here. With that, as we close here, John, maybe you can remind me. This is not the last episode, right? So even though this is the last round, we will be back at least one, maybe 2 more times. What were the 2 times we've been talking about coming back, John?
Yeah, so we definitely want to do one for Le Mans. So we'll do one sometime during one of the qualifying sessions or practice sessions for Le Mans. And we'll try and do one for the Champions Charity race as well. But both of those are a little bit more awkward because there isn't a nicely defined time where a lot of people are going to be watching. So we'll have to think about the timing of them both. But it would be cool to do one for Le Mans. And at some point in time we'll do one. I don't know whether it'll be in December or whether it'll be January. We'll do another one which will be devoted completely to the 2020 rules package. So Mike, Wayne, and I will talk about all the changes that we've made, which aren't huge ones. Most of it is tinkering, but it'll be interesting for everyone.
Awesome. Thank you to Adam and Dave, and as always, Mike and John, for joining me here on the Inside the Majors podcast. Good luck tomorrow to all the guys in the Europe and Americas regions, and we will see you next time.
Thanks,
Wade, and good luck to everyone in the races.